Good afternoon, everyone. This is going to be Sports Universal. I'm Ty, and this is Steven. And today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over after one team needs for everyone in the upcoming NFL 2018 draft, and also our own mock selections. If we're going to start it off, I'm doing the first 16th round picks, all the way from the Cleveland Browns all the way down to the Baltimore Ravens. So what I did is I did about the first 5 rankings, and then I chose them, the first being the most importance, and then the last being of least importance, and we're going to discuss in between what each role is and why it's important. So for the first round, I chose the Browns' biggest need is cornerback, left tackle, then you go quarterback, then you go defensive tackle, and lastly, right outside linebacker. Reason being is because Joe Thomas is leaving. That's a huge need. And you can't say the Browns have a definitive starting cornerback after Joe Hayden left.
I mean, you got, and then also on top of it, you got the best left tackle probably ever in the NFL. So, I mean, when he retires, it's kind of hard to replace him in the draft. It's going to be hard to find another Joe Thomas, of course.
And as everyone says, like everyone has the Browns selecting Sam Darnold or really tossing any quarterback into the mix first overall, but you have to think. They did sign Tyrod Taylor in the offseason, and they gave him a pretty good contract, and they've already admitted Tyrod Taylor is going to start off. He can hold the weight for the first year. He is a transition quarterback, but we all know that Tyrod Taylor can do good. He's just never had a supporting cast around him like he now does in the Bills.
Well, I mean, last year when he played for Buffalo, the Bills ranked 21st in passing offense.
Yeah.
You know, and their leading receiver was their running back, LaShawn McCoy. Mm-hmm. So with that, it's kind of hard to be a good starting quarterback. So you got to give him some credit where credit is due. He played as well as he could with what he had, especially his running back being his leading receiver and his tight end being his second leading receiver in Charles Clay.
Yeah. And you have to think, whenever your greatest receiver is one, not a running back, and then 2 is a tight end. The Browns have Jarvis Landry, they have Josh Gordon, and they have Corey Coleman. Those are 3 young receivers that can actually get the job done. So Tyrod Taylor is going to be perfectly fine. To be 100% honest, Browns don't need to draft a quarterback number 1 overall. Okay, number 2 for the Giants, I put quarterback as their top ranking. Then you can go center, right guard, or right tackle because the line is not that good. Then I put running back, edge rusher, and wide receiver. If you look at the Giants' offense, they're taking this 2 ways. You either look at Davis Webb and you're going to build up off him, or you continue to build off Eli Manning, which, in my honest opinion, Eli Manning has lived past his prime as the Giants' starting quarterback, and they should try to get youth, but sources have been said they're trying to build around Eli Manning still. So, yeah.
It's kind of in a rebuilding state if you look at it. I mean, the team that did so well the season before, making the playoffs. I mean, they lost in the playoffs, yes, but, they're a good team, but they just need to build. I think Eli Manning personally could still do something, but I feel like Davis Webb personally he could do more with so much youth and build around him if you're going to build around any quarterback. Because Eli Manning in a couple of years is going to retire, and then what are you going to do? I say build around Davis Webb, let him get some snaps. He might do pretty well, honestly, as a quarterback.
Okay, next we're going to have the Jets, and this is them from trading from Indianapolis, which they're originally at 6. They traded to 3rd overall, and vice versa. Indy now has the 6th overall pick. What I put for them is their biggest need is quarterback, edge rusher, be that left and right in with the Muhammad Wilkerson leaving. Then you go cornerback, guard/tackle, and lastly receiver, because they signed Teddy Bridgewater and Josh McCown to 1-year deals each. That's basically saying Josh McCown, he's almost out of the league entirely. He's held some weight first overall, but he hasn't really been a franchise quarterback. And Teddy Bridgewater, we don't know how healthy he's going to be. We saw that when Teddy's healthy, he's done good. But then again, he's missed the last 2 seasons primarily due to injury.
I mean, if you look at it like this, do you really want to put all your weight on a 39-year-old quarterback or put it on a guy who injured himself last year? No, they're not bad quarterbacks. I'm not saying that, but they, I don't think, are the future of the Jets. I mean, just for the fact you have a couple good quarterbacks, I think personally, those quarterbacks they're good quarterbacks. But in the draft, they really need to help themselves because if they miss out on a quarterback in the draft, then they're really hurting themselves in the long run. I think if they draft a quarterback, they will help themselves and they will be better off in the future. I think they have a young team that could really do something in this league if they draft a quarterback.
Okay. Next off, this is with the Browns again. Depending on no trades happen or whatever, I'm keeping it as the Browns keep their 4th overall pick, and the needs are going to stay the same. Either to take away maybe quarterback because we assume that they're going to be drafting quarterback overall. So then after that, you have the Broncos. And I personally say their biggest needs were cornerback, edge rusher, quarterback, offensive line, receiver, and then I tossed in tight end there because Virgil Green did, in fact, leave. The reason being is because when you have Aqib Talib leaving, you can't who's their second string?
Well, they got a second string. Now they have Bradley Roby.
Yeah, they have Bradley Roby, but after that, I can't name a good cornerback that the Denver Broncos have.
It's kind of like you lose your best corner, whether or not you have a stat cornerback. You're losing the leader of the corners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if they have depth at that position, it's still really hard to function with that corner gone. I mean, he left to the Rams, and I mean, he's getting older. He's eventually going to start declining in a couple of years. But the fact of the matter is it was that corner for so long, and he was so good at the position. So losing him is a big shot in the foot to the Broncos secondary.
Yeah, he was still the best player on that secondary, and you could argue regardless. Yeah, even if you don't think so, he's done the most for the Broncos. Yes. So he is your secondary, and unless you put all your eggs with Bradley Roby, you don't have a corner. Next reason I said edge rusher because you have Derek Wolfe, you have I can't really think of anyone else on the line, and like most people
in my personal opinion, Derek Wolfe's one of the better defensive players on the defensive lines. But that's about they do have other players on that team, but it's none of them other players are exactly stars.
None of them are creating pressure all the time.
Exactly.
Pro Bowl appearances and all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, you might argue that you have Von Miller, but he's a linebacker. He's not an end. That's
true.
Totally different thing altogether.
Exactly.
Next are the Colts with the 6th overall pick, and the absolute biggest need that they need is offensive line.
Personally, I think they're going to get a guard. And, I mean, if you look at it, if Andrew Luck was healthy in the past couple seasons, if his O-line was good, then the Colts would be doing a lot better. But when you are relying on Andrew Luck to take all that pressure and take all those hits, then there's something wrong. Because, I mean, you can't expect someone to take that many hits. He's been sacked more than any quarterback in the past couple seasons, and injury has finally occurred. At first, it wasn't – he was doing good, but, eventually all those hits will build up on you and hurt you.
The damage because you basically toss a quarterback out there and you're like, hey, you're going to get murdered. Just deal with it. Right. Now we see Andrew Luck and they don't even know if he can toss a football still.
Right.
That's why you got Jacoby Brissett because.
See, I personally think Jacoby Brissett, with the situation how the offensive line is probably the better choice because he's more mobile. Yeah. Andrew Luck is not necessarily just solo a pocket passer. He can move. But he's nothing like a Jacoby Brissett, who is solo a mobile quarterback that can throw somewhat, but that is the best situation for the Colts is keeping Jacoby Brissett, who did not do bad, build around him, trade Andrew Luck, and go on, make that team good again because they haven't really been a great team in a while. I mean, they were all right at first with Andrew Luck, but it's changed. It's years later, it's different. Yeah. You're not making the playoffs. Now it's time to fix that and change up something because it's not working.
And to finish off the Colts, the rest of their needs, they need an edge rusher to solidify that line. They need a linebacker, receiver, because basically besides T.Y. Hilton and Moncrief, maybe if you want to toss in, what's the other receiver? I think Philip Dorsett. Those are three receivers they have. Only one of those players you can definitely say without a doubt is your star receiver. You've got nothing else.
But even then, T.Y. Hilton, I mean, he's not old, but the fact is he is getting up in age, and he's going to eventually need some help to really make that receiving core a threat again, like a actual real threat. That's the problem. Is they are a good team if they help. They got holes. They got a lot of holes.
Yeah.
But if they draft well this year, they could be a decent team next year, helping out if Jacoby Brissett or Andrew Luck, whoever is the starting quarterback for the season next year.
Correct. Next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the 7th overall pick. My biggest concern for them was they need a cornerback, safety, running back, offensive line, and defensive line. Cornerback being because primarily I like to focus on the defensive side of the ball. And they did re-sign Brent Grimes to a one-year deal, but besides Brent Grimes, the Buccaneers truly do not have a star corner.
A solid corner. And even then, Brent Grimes is kind of – he's not bad, but he's
up there in age.
He's getting up there, and then he's not a Pro Bowl corner anymore. So it's kind of like you got to rebuild on the cornerbacks. You know, it's hard to rely on just one guy. So it's time to really step up, fix that, and then do something – to help your team and your secondary.
Yeah. Next, we're going to have the Bears with the 8th overall pick, and I chose offensive line, edge rusher, defensive line, inside linebacker, and a nickel corner. The biggest reason why is because you build that offense around Mitch Trubisky to hopefully build him up, because as we previously mentioned, if you don't have an offensive line to help your rookie quarterback, your franchise quarterback, he's going to end up like Andrew Luck, taking a beating all day long and just get murdered.
Exactly. I mean, you're right. It's kind of like you need a fix. The dude is very good. He's young. He's ready to play. He did pretty decent last year. He was not a bad player. But to make a quarterback, great, like a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, you have to give him weapons and solidify the offensive line, or at least make it stable enough where he's not like getting hit like the Colts quarterbacks. It's hard to watch that because, I mean, such a young, talented player such as him, Mitch Trubisky, I mean, he could be really good. He could be the future of the NFL, but they just need to really build around him. He's the future. Everyone knows it. If you're a Bears fan, Bears will be a good team in a couple years. As long as they build, then they will be a playoff team very soon. I guarantee it.
Okay, next we're going to go with the 49ers with the 9th overall pick. And once again, I'm going offensive line because if you look on the offensive line, the team is aging. The line is getting up there in age. If you want to look at your best offensive lineman, Joe Stanley, the left tackle, he is 34. For an offensive lineman, you still might have a couple of years left, but you're not in the prime of your career anymore. You are on the decline, and Joe Staley is the best lineman for the 49ers at the moment. After that, I put edge rusher again, cornerback, because I did sign Richard Sherman, but we do not know how he's going to come back after, was it one or two of his Achilles that he tore?
I think it was one. I'm not
Still,
don't quote me on that, but I think it's one.
When you tear an Achilles, it's never going to be the same. You're always going to have that damage on the Achilles. And as a cornerback, when you're trying to match speeds and make cuts all the time, with these receivers, running backs, and all of that, it's going to take damage on you. So we don't know how Richard Sherman's going to play out. So I still think cornerback is a top need that they are needing.
It really is. I mean, especially when you're playing dudes like Keenan Allen, playing Antonio Brown, Julio Jones. Those are fast and tough dudes. And I mean, wherever Dez Bryant signs, I mean, you also got Dez Bryant.
Yeah.
I mean, those are guys who will put you to the test. I mean, especially an Antonio Brown or Julio Jones type. They will put you to the test, and if you are injured or you're not 100%, you're not going to do very well, or you're not going to do good at all against those kind of guys because they're just that good.
Yeah.
That's why they make the money they make. Their talent.
Next, we have the Raiders with the 10th overall pick, and for them, I put cornerback, safety, linebacker, offensive tackle, and defensive tackle. Cornerback being the top need because I can't really think of any of their secondary that shows out as a threat. Whenever I think of the Raiders defense, I really don't see any threats coming anywhere besides Khalil Mack.
I mean, honestly, the problem with that team is their defense, just in general, their secondary is a mess. It's just a mess. You really need, if the Raiders do not go some type of secondary in the first round, I'd be surprised because their defensive secondary is a mess. It is an absolute mess at the moment. The Raiders really need to boost that secondary by drafting somewhere in this. I think they're going to go safety, but I mean, you can
just
get
secondary in general.
secondary.
That's what they need.
They need some youth to help them. Yeah. They have talented maybe front seven maybe but that's quite it. But after the front seven on that defense, the corners and safeties just I can't really tell you who is who. I mean,
there's no star players. You don't see any Richard Shermans. You don't see any Patrick Petersons. You don't get a sense of fear whenever you play the Raiders and you know you're going against their secondary.
Agreed.
Next, we have the Dolphins with the 11th overall pick. And what I chose, their absolute biggest need is defensive line. Then after that, you can go with tight end, cornerback maybe, depending on if they have faith in Ryan Tannehill or not. And lastly, linebacker. Reason defensive line being the first off is they lost Ndamukong Suh to the Rams, so they really don't have any defensive line besides Cameron Wake.
I agree with you. I mean, you look at the Dolphins, in my opinion, they have a whole lot of holes. They really do. Yeah. I mean, it's so much. There was so much talent a couple years back, but now they've lost quite a few players. Ryan Tannehill is not the same player. Yeah. He used to be a pretty decent player, but now it's kind of gone downhill for him. Especially being injured, is when you come back from injury, you're really never 100%. Especially if you have played football. If you've ever played football, tore anything, broke anything, you're never 100% ever again. It's kind of what happened, and you're kind of more cautious.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to play cautious, but sometimes it's not a good thing to play too cautious in football. I mean, honestly.
Next, we're going to have the Bills, and their top need is going to be quarterback, offensive line, receiver, safety, and linebacker. Reason being is if you look at the roster for the Bills, they have A.J. McCarron and Nate Peterman. A.J. McCarron, we've seen very little of him in the NFL for his NFL career. And with that career, he really hasn't done much. The only time he ever shined was whenever Andy Dalton got hurt. And even then, we knew Andy Dalton was going to be taking the starting spot whenever he came back. And Nate Peterman hasn't done much in the NFL either.
Well, I mean, what did Nate Peterman do? It was 5 or 6 interceptions first half of the game.
Yeah.
That already looks bad. And when A.J. McCarron did start in the injury of Andy Dalton, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't necessarily what you would say a good starting quarterback. Yeah. It was a lot of holes in A.J. McCarron's game. I mean, one of the biggest things when he played in Andy Dalton's spot was accuracy. Yeah. His QB vision was kind of tough, and he looked kind of rough in the pocket, especially his accuracy. I mean, it was a tough thing to watch when he played because he's not a bad quarterback, but the accuracy of A.J. McCarron was the worst thing ever because it was just it was horrible. It was not good.
But he's not a starter.
I don't believe he's a starter. I don't believe Nate Peterman's a starter. I solely believe if the Bills don't get a quarterback next season, it's going to be really rough on the offense of the ball. Mm-hmm. I think they really need to go and get something on the offensive side of the ball to help themselves.
And hit those other spots. You have Richie Incognito, your best offensive lineman. He's gone, so you don't got him anymore. For receiver, you have but to my memory, the greatest receiver that you've had recently was Sammy Watkins, and you haven't had him in a while.
Exactly. I mean, you lose your best receiver. And like we were saying earlier, what were you talking about? I was saying earlier about the Bills, but it was like 21st or something. They had one of the worst passing games in the NFL. And then, your running backs, your leading receiver, and then your second leading receiver was a tight end. So you got LaShawn McCoy, Charles Clay, and it's kind of a sad thing when your receivers are not pulling their weight. And they really do have holes too. They need to fix some stuff. The draft is a perfect time. They have plenty of draft picks.
Oh, yeah.
They have 2 in the first. They have plenty in the next rounds after that. They have a lot of draft picks. This is the time to really go young, fix that team, and do what you can to fill those holes in the best way you can.
Mm-hmm. Next is going to be the Washington Redskins with the 13th overall pick. And their biggest needs are defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, offensive guard, and lastly, quarterback. Defensive line is because if you look at the Redskins as a whole, they really do not have that many holes on that team. You could say the weakest spot is the defensive line because compared to the NFC East, Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles, all those teams you could argue have some presence at defensive line compared to the Redskins. And I think their best blitzer is Ryan Kerrigan, the linebacker.
I think so. I mean, it's like you have to look at it in this perspective. The Redskins don't have a terrible roster, nor do they have a perfect roster. They have holes, but if you really look at that roster, you go look at the Redskins roster, and they don't have as many holes as you would think.
Yeah.
They just have a couple things that are really kicking them in the butt at the end of the day. It's not even a big thing because there's not a lot of holes.
Yeah.
It's just things are kicking them in the butt, little things, only a few things that really are hurting them. At the end of the day, they need to fill those little holes they have, and I guarantee you they will have a playoff shot. I'm not going to go as far as the Super Bowl at the moment, but they still got to really find if Alex Smith is going to play at the level they want him to play because they gave a lot for him and they want him to play well. So I think he will be good, but they have to wait and see that for themselves.
Yeah, we just got to see because the Redskins, in all honesty, they're not losing that much wherever they draft this year because they don't need to fill that much. Next up, we have the Packers with the 14th overall pick, and my biggest concerns for them was cornerback, offensive line, receiver, edge rusher, and outside linebacker. Your opinions on that?
On the Packers?
Yeah.
Personally, I think the Packers, especially trading away their top corner for DeShone Kizer, I think they really need to go corner or they need to go defense. In my opinion, they need to go defensive line. I think it's going to be a tough time for them if they don't go corner, especially because they did trade away their best corner. And I'm not saying what they traded away for with DeShone Kizer, who is a pretty decent young quarterback.
But either way, you have a hole. You took something away from your secondary.
That's what I'm saying. You got a big hole. I see why they got Kizer. Maybe the youth to sit behind Rodgers, kind of like the Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Sit him behind him, let him be the next quarterback up in line. Because Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, you see that, man, that was – what Aaron Rodgers done, he's won him a Super Bowl. And lots of quarterbacks can't say they've done that. So, to even win one is an accomplishment in its own right,
Yeah, and it hit it. We saw Aaron Rodgers get hurt last season and just get a better offensive line because basically the formula is in Green Bay when you don't have Rodgers, you don't win. And that's why you have the 14th overall pick this year and you're not in the playoffs.
Exactly. You're not lying. Brett Hundley himself is just not a starting quarterback.
He's not Aaron Rodgers.
He's not Aaron Rodgers. There's a connection. When Jordy Nelson was there's a connection between those two players. It might seem odd, but there is a connection when you play with the same quarterback for such a long time, and then he gets injured, goes down, and you're playing with someone else. It's kind of like the Tony Romo, Des Bryant. That was one of the best combinations, but then you dropped Romo to injury, and then he retired. So now you have to kind of play it. You have Dak and him, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
It did not work out because the different types of quarterback that Dak is and Romo was, and that's the same with Rodgers and Hundley.
Yeah.
One was a pocket passer, one was more of the guy who could scramble. Like Romo and Rodgers, they could run. And they could make plays. And they could escape pressure, but they're nothing like Prescott or Hundley. Those are mobile quarterbacks, solely mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah. It's just the connections between your quarterback, the scheme you run, and your offensive line. Because if all those things aren't hitting together,
it's tough.
You get the pick that you have now, 14th overall.
I know it hurts, and it does. It sucks not to make the playoffs, for any organization at that.
Next, we have the Arizona Cardinals at the 15th overall pick, and their dire need is going to be quarterback. Next, you can go offensive line, then receiver, cornerback, and safety. Quarterback should be simple enough because you have 38-year-old Carson Palmer. No, I'm Sam Bradford. I'm Sam Bradford. Sorry,
you're good.
But either way, Carson Palmer, Sam Bradford, they're both old.
It's kind of bad. It's kind of bad, Sorry about that. You got you got him in there, and then the past couple seasons he's been injured.
Yeah.
And on top of being injured, it doesn't really help. Do you really trust a guy who can't stay healthy? It's kind of like the Vikings. They put a lot. They trusted him. He didn't play bad. He's not a bad quarterback. It's just you have to be healthy for you to mean something to a team. And if you're getting paid a lot of money and you're injured, all that team did was, put a lot of money into you get hurt.
Yeah. He's not the franchise quarterback.
No, not even close.
He's not going to be there in 5 years.
Nope.
And look at the whole rest of the team. You have Larry Fitzgerald. He might not even be there for 2 years. You could even say this might be his last year. That's what it seems like every year.
You never know.
Defensive side of the ball, you have Patrick Peterson.
He's aging too.
Yeah, he's getting up in age, and for a cornerback, age means a lot. So Cardinals need to have some needs they need filled.
They got some holes, Mont. They really do.
And with the 16th overall pick in the NFL draft, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and my biggest needs for them were wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, inside linebacker, and quarterback. This is because look at the receiving core for the Ravens. You have, as of recently of this video being made,
Willie Snead has, the Saints could not match the offer sheet for Willie Snead, so Willie Snead is now part of the Baltimore Ravens.
So you have Willie Snead, you have Mike Wallace, you have Rashard Perriman, and those are your top 3 receivers. And you can make arguments on all of them saying, Mike Wallace, he's a speedster. He's going to go down. He's going to be your vertical threat. He hasn't really produced in Baltimore that much. Same thing with Rashard Perriman. He is young. Yes, he is tall. He is fast. But he does not produce. And Willie Snead, you cannot say he's a true dominant number 1 receiver for a
He's
team.
always been a slot. I mean, in New Orleans, he was a slot receiver mainly. I mean, he did a little bit of everything, I guess you might say. But, I mean, mainly in New Orleans, he was a slot receiver, and that's kind of his role. He's a role player, more so than a dude who's going to get 1,000 yards a season like Julio Jones, Antonio Brown type player. He's not. I mean, he's a 500, 400-yard guy, 4 or 5 touchdowns in the slot, kind of like Cole Beasley. So, I mean, you got to look at it in that perspective. He's not your number 1 receiver, not because he's bad. It's just because that's not his role in the NFL.
Yeah. Basically, if we look at the scheme of the Ravens, you have Joe Flacco, who's going to be tossing it down the field all the time, trying to toss it to a bunch of slot receivers who at max are like 5'10", 5'11", maybe hitting that 6-foot spot. So Ravens need a new receiver, maybe a new quarterback since Joe Flacco isn't doing that much.
Very true.
And now we go over to obesity.
All right, so I got the pick 17 through 32. So with the 17 pick, I say the Chargers need center. I did only 3 of their needs. I didn't do 5. So I think the Chargers personally, I think they need center, linebacker, free safety. Mm-hmm. You kind of go to the fact their offensive line has struggled in the past couple seasons. Phillip Rivers, do you really want your franchise quarterback to keep getting hit? A center is a big part of the offense, especially, that's a dude who snaps the ball. Yeah. He is your main guy. He's right in front of you.
He's the anchor of the offense.
He really is. If you don't have an anchor, then it's really tough to have a good offensive line. You need a good center. You really do need a good center to win ball games, in my opinion. I don't care who you have on your offensive line, And I think they need to go and they need to draft in this draft a center. I think first round they need to draft a center. And then their linebacker core. It's kind of weak. I mean, I can't really tell you. It's not very strong. I mean, they did not produce very much last year at all. They did not produce. It was terrible, honestly. It really was. And then ever since they lost Eric Weddle, it's really been tough for them to win. I mean, or it's not win, but like for their secondary to really produce. And it's been all right. Their secondary is not terrible. It's not terrible at all. They do have young corners.
It's just that if you get past the corners, they have no help at safety.
That's what I'm saying.
Basically just
they don't have back corners. They just don't have an anchor in that back of the defense. The last man, you might say, the last person who can stop that other person running to the end zone. They don't have anybody. It's hard to find a guy like Eric Weddle. Eric Weddle is one of the best safeties you can, honestly, in NFL history. So, yes, it's going to be hard to replace him, but you have to figure it out some way, somehow. And I think they should go safety probably second round, center first round, and then linebacker third. That's how I think. And then the Seahawks. You know this. The Seahawks offensive line, it was ranked 32nd last year. It's one of the worst. It is the worst offensive line in the NFL, easily. People talk the Colts is the worst offensive line, blah, 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 whatever. No, in my opinion, it's not the worst offensive line.
Going by stats alone, Seahawks take the cake.
They really do. I mean, they have one of the worst offensive lines. And the biggest problem with their offensive line is the difference between the Colts line and their line is the Colts, they actually like flip around, but the Seahawks don't. The Seahawks have a horrible line. Yeah. And then their running back. It's hard. I'm not saying it's really the running back's fault, but you don't have a line. And then CJ Prosize, he's an explosive, runner. So, I mean, you have to give him some holes to run through.
Like, here's the difference. Whenever you had Marshawn Lynch, and when you have a power back like that, a once-in-a-generational kind of player who has that much power and that much force behind him, if he has a bad line, he's just going to go through the line.
But a guy like CJ Prosize, who's not really necessarily a power back, it's hard for them to do that. He's kind of like Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott can break the tackles, but he's not going to do something like Marshawn. Let's break through multiple people at one time.
He's not going to go through a tackle, a linebacker, and all that at the same time and keep going.
No, he can. That's like CJ Prosize they need to help in general. They need to protect Wilson. And then my last one on that is edge rusher. You lose a Michael Bennett. You lose a once-in-a-lifetime end right there. And you think replacing him is going to be easy? No. It's going to be one of the hardest things you can do because Michael Bennett is a very, very talented end that, they got lucky. They found him. And then he was a very good end, So you got to figure out how to fix this. The Seahawks, in my opinion, it's going to be hard for them to pick. And for me, it's hard to really think what they're going to pick because there's a lot of holes that they really need to fix. If it's me, it's probably going to be offensive line.
Because you have to think, just the Seahawks in general, they're on a rebooting stage on their defense, and they're deciding, hey, we're going to build around Russell Wilson on our offense. So you can really just take it however you want it, but there are holes.
And then you got the Cowboys. They need a defensive tackle, wide receiver, and guard. See, last year at guard for the Cowboys was a very tough season. It's hard to do that when you lose a guy like Ronald Leary. Ronald Leary was very, very, very talented the year before, and then he left. And, he left for more money, But it's hard when you have a player that – who was the guard? It was a left guard was
Leo Collins.
Leo Collins, okay.
Yes.
He's not bad, but then you have on the outside.
But then you looked at from Leo Collins, the guard, they moved him over to tackle to fill another hole with Doug Free retiring. So
you kind of have to I think guard is a very important spot. And then also defensive tackle. The Cowboys last year was the most sacks they've had in a while, just total in their defense. DeMarcus Lawrence have a breakout year. Now you need the pressure through the middle of the line. You need to be able to let someone some defensive tackle to be able to break through and make those plays because Tyrone Crawford needs help on that line. Okay, and then, of course, you got wide receiver. Des Bryant leaving. We signed, Alan Hearns?
Yes, Alan Hearns was signed to the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, so Cowboys, they signed Alan Hearns.
But then,
you need I don't know if he's a true number one receiver for the Cowboys. Maybe he could be. I'm not going to. But I think, it's a big need for the Cowboys to draft receiver. Personally is, and they really need to figure that out. And then 20, I got the Lions. The Lions, pass rusher, running back, and tight end. So look at it in this perspective. The last running back that they had that was really, really good was Barry Sanders. And they had not had an 1,000-yard running back since Barry Sanders. They don't. Well, no, I think they've had it once. I don't really know.
But Barry Sanders was the last star running back that any Lions fan or anyone can really say.
You can think. You can remember off grid. They did sign LeGarrette Blount, yeah. And so they signed him, but is he really a true running back that's good? Tech is going to produce. You got to take pressure off Matthew Stafford. You paid him all this money. He never won a playoff game. So now you really got to take some pressure. And it's not necessarily his fault either. The Lions are going to have to take pressure off him, draft right.
Look at the whenever the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, they ran both LeGarrette Blount and J.H.I. because they know that LeGarrette Blount isn't their star running back. They're looking for the future, younger youth, J.H.I. They maybe ran him for a couple of plays and then let Ajayi take the workload.
And then tight end. Tight end's a big need for that team. And what's the name? Matt Patricia, I think that's the name from the Patriots.
Yeah.
See, he went from Ron Gronkowski to no one, basically no one. And the thing is about that is it's going to be tough. He's a magician in himself. He's a very good coordinator, good defensive coordinator, but And he's, obviously he's defensive minded, but he is going to have trouble replacing, going from Gronkowski to really no one, That's the problem with it. And then, it's crazy. And then pass rusher. The Lions really need to help, pass rushing, relieve the corners a little bit by giving some pass rush, drafting some defense, put some pressure on that quarterback. Because they did it a little bit last year, but they didn't do it enough to
ever since Sue left the Lions.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like it kind of goes in a circle, Okay, so 21 Bengals. They need offensive line, linebacker, and tight end. Okay, so at the moment, their starting tight end, they haven't signed him back. What was his name?
Tyler Eifert.
Yeah, Tyler Eifert. Yeah. They have not signed him back at the moment. And the tight end they have, I can't think of his name off my head, but the tight end they have, they drafted. He's more, like I was reading about it yesterday, he's more of a blocking type end. And at the moment, they don't know if they're going to re-sign Tyler Eifert because injured.
And if you look at the NFL currently right now, the blocking tight end is kind of phasing out. You're wanting your receivers tight end like for the Lions, you had Eric Ebron, who was the speedster going up and catching. That's what the NFL is turning to nowadays, and that's why old school blocking tight ends are kind of going out of phase, and they're becoming second strings, third strings, just not starters.
Kind of like, it's crazy, And then linebacker. I mean, really, if you look at it, and they didn't do a lot of linebacker.
The best linebacker is Vontaze Burfict, and most of the time he's being suspended because he's going to do something illegal.
He's not very smart. He's done so many dumb things.
Think about it. He cost you, all Bengals fan out there, he cost you a playoff win by giving Antonio Brown a concussion. So, yeah, your best linebacker is someone who cost you a playoff win.
And, he's not a bad linebacker, but the stuff he does is not smart. Yeah. You really got to look at it like this. Are you really willing to pass up on a good linebacker? And there's a lot in the first round. I mean, this really is, my opinion, linebacker is one of the biggest things for the Bengals. Okay, so 22 is going to be the Bills once again, and he already kind of covered what the Bills need, so I'm not really going to cover it, but I'm going to talk about it. Center, you lose probably one of the best centers in the NFL, if not the best centers. There's only a couple that are probably better than him. And then quarterback, you have A.J. McCarron, who's not a true starting quarterback personally. He's not one of those guys you think, oh, he's going to be my franchise quarterback. We've already seen what he can do in a year of start or playing as a starter. And then wide receiver. I think wide receiver is a big deal. I think the quarterback needs to be first, receiver second, and center third. I think they really need to fix this team because they are going downhill. They're not going uphill. So they need to either fix it or it's going to be a bad season to say the least. Okay, so 23, the Patriots. You have offensive tackle, cornerback, and edge rusher. I think offensive tackle is a big thing for them because they lost Nate Soldier. Yeah. He was a very, very good offensive tackle. And then now your blind side for
for Brady is basically gone. You got no blindside protection.
Yeah, you need to fix that. And then they lost Malcolm Butler, right? Malcolm Butler, their cornerback. And he was pretty good. He did not have the best 2017 season in the world, but he had a pretty decent season. And with him gone, it's going to be tough. And then their edge rusher. You have to really it's a big thing in the NFL. Even if you have great corners and if your line, like your defensive line is not that good and you can't get pressure, it's really hard on your corners. It really is because they eventually get tired.
Yeah. I would argue and say that you could add quarterback on the need because think about this. You have 40-year-old Tom Brady, and Brady says he's going to play to 45. That's never going to happen.
No,
he's going to get killed before it, and we're going to see Brady die on the field before that happens. And guess who you have as a backup? You have Brian Hoyer, who was at best a decent quarterback for the 49ers. And
the Browns, but I mean – Brian Hoyer especially signed it, to a 3-year deal. I think that was the dumbest thing they could have done.
Yeah.
I know they needed a quarterback with Jimmy G. I don't think they should have traded him for what they traded him.
Well, they gave up on Jimmy Garoppolo, who's leading the 49ers, who's possibly the franchise quarterback for the 49ers for years to come.
Well, when he got to the 49ers, he didn't lose a game. I mean, how do you – they traded what was a second-round pick for probably a franchise quarterback in Jimmy G.
Yeah.
I think – doing that was the worst thing they could do. And then the thing is about Brian Hoyer is he's going to retire in a couple of seasons anyway. So even if Tom Brady makes it 3 or 4 more seasons, Brian Hoyer's probably going to retire by the time that's even done.
And that's another thing. You know your third string quarterback. You know the person who's probably going to replace Andrew Luck. Yeah, you traded him away too.
For real. You know, the thing is, you can't give too little for what they have. Like, I know backups, Tom Brady's, he is one of the best, if not the GOAT of the NFL. You know, you can argue that, of course, about Joe Montana, blah, 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 whatever. But the thing is you traded Jimmy G, who went undefeated. Yeah, the future for a second-round pick. I wouldn't even took a first for him, just for the fact that he led the 49ers and did not lose one game. Jacoby Brissett is playing great with what he has. So, I mean,
all the time does not lose.
It doesn't. It don't matter who you are. You can be the healthiest person. You're eventually going to catch up to you. All right, so after that, I got the Panthers. All right, I got offensive line, I got safety, and I got defensive end. So on that, for the offensive line, you know, Cam Newton he didn't get crushed last year necessarily, but
Well, compared to the 2015 season, was it 2015 his MVP season?
Yeah.
He was getting hit all the time. He was taking pressure.
That was 2016, I think.
Yeah, but we saw Cam. Whenever Cam gets hurt, Cam doesn't like it.
No, he honestly, and the thing is you really got to protect him. I mean, is you love him or hate him, whatever. You know, you don't have to like the guy, whether you like him or not. He really is a franchise quarterback for the Panthers. I mean, he's done well in what he's had, and he's played. He's took him to the Super Bowl. He might have lost the Super Bowl. He did it though. You know, no quarterback's ever won a Super Bowl in Carolina, but he did it, and not a lot of people have in Carolina. And then safety, you know. With Tillman retired, I think it's Charles Tillman.
Yeah, Charles Tillman retired.
Retiring, you know, old Peanut, I think that's what they call him. You know, retiring, you know, it's hard for your safeties to really be good after that. That was your guy. That was the Panther dude for years. He played for years.
Just in general, like your secondary isn't the all-time greatest. No. Whenever you lost then one of the best corners in the league, Josh Norman, to the Redskins, and with Charles Tillman retiring, your secondary is not looking the best.
It's kind of slim. It really is. You have a lot of depth. And then you got the ends of them, you know. That's another thing. Is you're coming in with, you got Julius Peppers.
Yeah.
And he's, 38,
you
37?
Julius Peppers and you got Charles Johnson, but they're both aging.
And those are the all-time leading sackers for the Panthers, of course. But like we were talking about, Father Tomkins is up to you whether you like it or you don't like it. And Julius Peppers is 38, and the other one's like 37, 38. They're almost 40. They got 2 seasons. And the thing is they're not going to last much longer. And you better fix that. You better work on that. I'm telling you, it's a big deal. They got the Titans. You know, the Titans they've done a lot better than this campaign was the best season they've had yet in a while. So I mean, happy for them, good for them. Happy Titans fans, I know that for sure. But you got edge defenders, you got wide receiver, and you got inside linebacker. You know, they have a problem. It's like most of these teams I've said today, getting to the quarterback. You know, it's a thing. And then their wide receiver core, you know, Eric Decker is like, he's one of the main.
Yes,
he's like,
that's your best receiver.
Probably. I mean, it's really tough.
And no discredit to Eric Decker and all the things he's done, but he's just up in age. And that's what the biggest thing for most of these teams. Yeah, you might have a star player, but whenever that player's 35 and up, they're not going good, especially as a skill position as a receiver. You're in your prime at basically 28, and ever since then, you're just kind of going downhill as a receiver.
Right, for like 24, 28 is usually the prime of a receiver.
Yeah.
You know, they're good. I think they're still going to be a good team next year. I do. I'm happy for them. I feel good. I know Titans fans are excited and thrilled to see what the future of that team has. You
got to give someone to Mariota so he can do something with.
Yeah, correct. Completely right about that. Then you got the Falcons. You know, you got defensive line, offensive guard, and the slot receiver. Okay, so their slot receiver is they're predicted to lose them to Chicago.
Yeah.
So the thing is that is already predicted. So slot is a big thing. They defensive line, their defensive tackle. Oh man, who was it? It was a starter last year. Was with them. I can't think of his name off my head, but
still, your best person that you drafted on that defensive line is Tarkis McKinley, if I remember right, the defensive end that was drafted the last draft.
Yeah,
that's your best player, and he's a rookie. He's doing good, but that's your best player on the line.
And you need to build around him to help him. And then you got offensive guard. You know, they had a rough for Matt Ryan especially. It's been rough for him. You know, keeping those tackles coming right at him. They need to really stack that guard position up and fix that. I mean, their line overall is not bad, but guard is a big hole in that.
Yeah.
So you really need to build on top of that. Okay. So then you got the Saints. You got defensive end, wide receiver, and quarterback. Drew Brees, let me tell you something, man. He's one of the best, and he's a Hall of Famer without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
I do not discredit him for anything he's done. But there comes the thing is you have to give him some help. You have to give him a future behind Drew Brees. Signing a 2-year deal, Saints fans were very excited. And I know they were excited because he's still producing. So, yes, I'm happy for him, but you have to draft someone. And the defensive end, Cameron Jordan. He's a restricted free agent at the moment. So, therefore, you're losing a dude who played freaking great last year. He was amazing last year, one of his best seasons yet. You have to help him. And then you got wide receiver.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
This is how the wide receiver core works for the Saints. You have Drew Brees, who makes a receiver good because Drew Brees is just amazing as is. He's never really had any Pro Bowl talent around him until they leave to another team. And the second they start getting good, they either go down injury, they leave to another team. So Drew Brees is constantly just having no one around him to help him.
I mean, this season, though, with those two running backs, that was a big boost. Yeah, it was a big boost to him. He's had some talent, with him, but a team like New England or Green Bay, teams like that in the past, couple seasons, they have a lot of talent around him. And then Drew Brees never really had a defense till this last upcoming season. And then the run in the Super Bowl, his defense was pretty good. But then he lost a lot of those defensive players because, when you win the Super Bowl, lots of teams are interested in those players on your team. So they're going to snag them up. That's the thing.
Your best receiver is Alvin Kamara, the running back.
It's true. Honestly, it's really true about that. So, sorry, doing something. Grab something. Yeah, you're looking at it like this. You really have to play well for that team. Drew Brees is going to try to make one last run after a Super Bowl before he is retired.
Yeah.
And if he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But you can't discredit Drew Brees for what he's done. Drew Brees is probably easily the best starting quarterback in the past, other than Tom Brady. Don't let me get you guys angry about that. But, no, honestly, he's one of the best quarterbacks that you've seen. And then, he's broke records in the past couple seasons. That's the thing.
Basically, take Drew Brees out of the formula for the Saints and really don't have much going with you because name the backup for Drew Brees. What's his name, Steven? If you have any idea?
I'm going to have to be honest with you. I'm not really sure who his backup is.
And you have a no name, and I like to think I have a pretty good idea of all the backups and starters.
I do too.
There's no future for the Saints at quarterback.
And then you got the Steelers. You got inside linebacker, safety, and quarterback. I'm going to start with quarterback just for the fact, Ben Roethlisberger, how he said he doesn't think he has it anymore last season. He's contemplating retirement. So why don't you get someone to, in case he retires after the season, or if he gets injured, or if he retires?
Yeah, and when a player starts getting that mindset, it's like, is this the year that I'm retiring? Is this when I'm done with everything? It's just like they're not the same player. They don't have the same level of motivation, and they don't have the same level of production that they're providing when they're confident that they are certain they're going to play.
Agreed. It's really tough, to see a quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger think that way, think he doesn't have it. Because, Hall of Famer, without a doubt. But, he knows he's realistic about everything. He knows he doesn't have, 20 years left, but it's crazy to think. So, honestly, we will be right back.
Okay, so we were right back. We had some technical issues, and this guy had a heart attack.
Not really, but so like I was saying, talking about the Steelers, the linebackers, they need some help with Ron Steer being going down. You got to move on. Once in a lifetime player in Ron Steer, but
we don't know if he's going to make a full recovery or not. So it's safe to get a new one because we don't know if he's going to be able to fully be himself again.
An injury like that is really hard to come back from, especially because it could be career, and it was life threatening too. You know, so it's hard. And then you got 29. You got the Jaguars. You know, tight end Mercedes Lewis can't do it forever. He's been producing for them for the past for a while at that. You know, and then you got nickel corner. You know, they got AJ Boye and AJ Boye and Jalen Ramsey. There you go. And they're two good corners. You know, really good corners. But they play that position. They play on that side. They're not nickels. They're not nickel cornerbacks. It's not what they do. And with the other corner they had leaving, they kind of need to revamp that and put someone there, even if they're not that great, someone to really help AJ Boye and Jalen Ramsey.
See, I'd say your biggest needs would be either tight end for whatever quarterback, or in that other instance, quarterback, because you don't know if Blake Bortles is going to be good or not. And, you know, whenever you talk about Blake Bortles, I've been watching a lot of videos recently about like the worst draft picks ever by each team, and more or not, Blake Bortles falls under that mold because, yeah, he was able to help in this season, but no one ever knows if Blake Bortles is going to be good or not in this season. He's never consistent. When he's good, he's really good. When he's bad,
he's really bad.
Yes.
You know, it's hard. It's crazy to think. I mean, he can be consistent. Sometimes he is. Sometimes he isn't. And you got to kind of comes to the point. Do you trust that? Are you scared how he's going to play?
Yeah.
You know, you never know. And then third, you get the Vikings. You got guard, defensive tackle, nickel corner, guard. It's a big position for the Vikings last year. They solidified the tackles. But guard's a big thing for them. And then you got defensive tackle. They just need defensive tackle. They need pressure. Pressure is the biggest thing, and one of the biggest things in football, easily. Then a nickel corner. You need to get that corner so your top two corners can play their roles and not have to come down and play that role, or move someone up who's not that great, who can't do it. Then you have the Patriots. We're going to talk about this. But, I mean, you know, they're a team that doesn't have a lot of holes. So it's kind of hard to really know.
Okay, and when we talk about the Patriots with the 31st overall pick,
yes, sir.
It's like we discussed with the 23rd overall pick. We discussed all their needs and all that, but the biggest hitters are, I say, quarterback, offensive tackle. What else?
Offensive tackle, corner, and edge rusher. You know, the pressure they need to get to quarterback and help themselves. You know, relieve the pressure off the corners and loosen Malcolm Butler. That's another big thing. The Eagles, you know, the Super Bowl champions, my people. You know, they need nickel corner, wide receiver, and tight end. You know, losing a lot of tight ends, and they really do need some help at tight end, you know.
Because you lost Zach Ertz. You did lose LeGarrette Blount, and some people are going to say, no, Jerry Ajayi can take the workload himself. But it's always good to have a solid, if not a decent, number two running back to complement your running back. So Jay Ajayi just isn't taking all the work himself.
Correct. I agree with you completely on that. Alrighty, guys. Now we're going to go towards our
mock draft selection.
So he's doing the 1st through 16th, and I'm doing the 17th through 32nd.
And we're just going to kind of go after each pick our selections. We're going to kind of just go a little back and forth and see, agree, disagree, why that pick was made, why not, just to see what we think. So with the first pick in the first round, I chose the Browns to take Sam Darnold. The reason why, he's the most rated quarterback out of all of them. He's going to have he has the highest ceiling, but also he has the highest floor. So he's going to be your instant starter. If not, the Browns can make him an instant starter. He'd be fine. Or they can let him train behind Tyrod Taylor for a year and go for it.
I mean, I agree with you on that. I don't disagree. I think quarterback Sam Darnold will be the future of the NFL and their franchise quarterback easily. So, I mean, I think, honestly, you need to build around either Tyrod Taylor or Sam Darnold, not one or the other. I think because since they're both young, Sam Darnold obviously is a lot younger, but you need to pick one of the two to build around to make – because Tyrod Taylor can still be around for a long time. So, you know, you got to pick.
But on a sudden note, and like I said before, all my needs, I put quarterback at the very back end of their needs because Tyrod Taylor can get the job done himself. He just never had a supporting cast. So we know the Browns are going to select a quarterback first overall, but they don't need to if you honestly think about it. So next I have the Giants taking Saquon Barkley, the running back, obviously. Or I have them taking Mike McGlinchey, the tackle. The reason being is if they're going to build around Eli Manning, regardless, they need to build up that line, or they need to take the running back to relieve pressure off of Eli Manning. And they would have Odell, they would have Saquon Barkley. That'd be a scary offense.
It would be. I mean, also, that depends if he's signed or not. Odell stays with New York. But, the fact that you're going with tackle, I agree with you. I really do. Because Eric Flowers was terrible.
And they're trying to get rid of Eric Flowers. I don't know if you've read.
He was not. He just wasn't great. I mean, he is not really the ideal left tackle or tackle at all. Offensive lineman at all. I mean, he was not bad in college, but it's a whole different ballgame in the NFL. It's professional players who've done it for a while. Lots of vets.
For the third overall pick for the Jets, this is where things kind of get crazy, and depending on how you go it, you can really toss any quarterback. I personally put Josh Allen there, but this was a close tie with Baker Mayfield since both these quarterbacks could be taken third round, or they could go as late as they could go 12, so on. It's just whatever one they want to take. There's a lot. They can go Allen, they can go Rawson, they can go Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of room.
Well, I'm not to disagree with you. I think Josh Allen's a good quarterback. Do not get me wrong. I'm not down on him in any way, shape, or form. But the thing is about Josh Allen is his accuracy. It's always been a problem for him. Josh Rosen, though, injury. And then Baker Mayfield, he's not mature, in my opinion. I feel like the overall best quarterback for New York is going to be Rosen. I'm not saying Allen's not a good pick, but, I feel like
the only reason I chose Allen over Rosen is because, like we discussed before, once you're injured, that injury, no matter how minor or how severe, it's still an injury. Your body still takes it to some degree. Like, for instance, when we talked about Richard Sherman, he's a star player. Yes, we know this, but he tore his Achilles. That's an injury that's going to stay with him for the rest of his life. He had two concussions?
He's had a couple, He's had a couple.
Concussions, they add up. They do their damage. So we don't know how long he's going to last. It could be a season. It could be 5 years. It could be 10 years. We just don't know. That's the only reason I chose Allen, because you can train accuracy. You can make a quarterback more accurate with training.
You're right. You're not lying. You're correct.
With the fourth overall pick, I chose the Browns to take Bradley Chubb. The reason why is because this is the Browns' defensive line as is. You have Myles Garrett, you have Emmanuel Ogbah, and you don't really have any defensive tackle. But you take Bradley Chubb, you put him on the end, you put Ogbah on the end, and you move Myles Garrett to the inside because he's strong enough and he's versatile enough to play defensive tackle.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I feel like if you get Bradley Chubb on that offense, my bad, correct myself, defensive line, then you have a very scary defensive line. Personally, I feel like the Browns can be a successful team with the roster they have. Whether you like the Browns, you don't like the Browns, your rival, whatever. I feel like the Browns themselves are going to be a very talented team this upcoming season. And just give them a little bit to build around, just a little bit more.
Don't take offense, but AFC fans, the AFC is not the strongest division in this year. There's a lot of rebuilding going on. There's a lot of players that have been leaving.
You could even say, not talk about Steelers, I'm not going to say the Steelers are. You could even say the Bengals have probably one of the worst rosters in the NFL, if not the worst. Yeah. Personally, I feel like the Browns are either going to be third or second in there, probably third in their division, but I don't feel like there's any way that the Browns are going to be fourth in the division this year.
And Browns are on the up and up. It's just happening.
It really is. They're finally doing
it. Fifth overall with the Broncos, and this is where things can kind of split depending on how this goes. I have in person taking Denzel Ward, the cornerback, but also the Browns have been speculated to take quarterback, and this all depends on how. Yeah, the Broncos.
You said Browns.
Oh, sorry, the Broncos fifth overall. I saw a lot of reports that they were interested in Josh Rosen because they're needing a quarterback. Because how much faith do you have in Paxton Lynch?
Or Case Keenum.
You don't know. Yeah, or even Case Keenum, but
that's true. You don't know. You got a really good point there too.
And because they lost Aqib Talib, they need a cornerback, so they need that secondary to be revamped. Any comments?
Not really. I think you're right on that pick. I agree with you, honestly. Completely agree with you on that pick.
Okay.
So then they
Next, we're going to go 6 overall with Colts, and I chose them taking Quentin Nelson, the guard, because that offensive line is their top need. They need to solidify that offensive line if they want any quarterback to thrive in Indy. If not, we're going to see Andrew Luck all over again getting killed.
I mean, honestly, if you look at it, no matter how many times they switch the offensive line and they try to fix it and flip it around, nothing has worked. And after you do something so many times and it doesn't seem to work, why do you keep trying? Why don't you move on, go to the draft the probably the best guard in the draft at the moment, Quentin Nelson for Notre Dame, and play?
Yeah, it's just the safest pick. No one likes taking offensive linemen that high in the draft, but if you look at Dallas in the past, we forego so many expensive players and high value players to draft linemen, and Dallas has one of the arguably best offensive lines in the NFL now.
It really does. I mean, and then you got 3 Pro Bowls on that offensive line with Zach Martin, Travis Frederick, Trevon Smith. Why not give it a shot? Go get a lineman, because I mean, you really need that's the lineman, like the line is like the first defense. It's like in war, you know.
It's what is going to unify your offensive line altogether, and they are what makes that offense run.
It really true.
Okay, 7th overall with the Buccaneers, I chose that they would take Derwin James, the safety. The reason why is because I imagine you could take a corner maybe later, possibly 2nd round, just to help that secondary overall, depending on how Brent Grimes does this year. Have a young safety to help him take over.
I agree. I mean, honestly, the only thing, there's something since how you did your mock draft. I think if for some odd reason that Barkley is still around by that pick, I feel like the Bucs are going to go running back.
Yeah.
I mean, losing their top running back, Doug Martin, I feel like they really could use it. And, corner too, or safety too. You're right.
That's if Barkley makes it too.
That's what I'm saying. Is if he makes it to that late in the draft, then maybe.
Yeah. With the 8th overall pick, I have the Bears taking Marcus Davenport, the end. The reason why, because me personally, I like to build my defenses. You start with the end. You get pressure on them. That can cause quarterbacks to throw worse passes, make them throw it faster, stop the run. But that was my personal opinion. Build up that, solidify that end.
I agree. I mean, honestly, pressure is a big thing. I mean, I've said that a lot. I know I'm repeating myself, but it is in the NFL. Defensive line, offensive line. Those are like the core of a defense or offense. That's right there. I mean, you're not really at your best unless you have a good offensive line or a good defensive line.
Okay. And with the 9th pick, we have the 49ers, and I told them that they would take Josh Jackson, the cornerback. Reason being is we do not know how Richard Sherman's going to hold up. He's either going to be a hit or a miss. No one truly knows. Me personally, I think he's more going to be a miss for the 49ers. So get some youth in the team, and hopefully Josh Jackson can take over that secondary.
I mean, I agree with you on that. I don't really disagree, but I mean, miss, hit, whatever whatever the case is on that. I feel like Richard Sherman is, not going to be the same. I don't feel like he's going to be like he was in his, when they were having their Super Bowl runs in Seattle, when they won the Super Bowl. That's not going to be even close to the same. It's going to be a lot different.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the 49ers and Richard Sherman sign a 3-year deal?
2 or 3, yeah.
2 or 3?
2 or 3 year deal.
So let's say that.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, let's say that Richard Sherman gets hurt. Guess what? You're stuck with him for a while, and that's why you take a young cornerback. So there's more upside, and hopefully you have a future cornerback star in Josh Jackson. With the 10th overall pick, I have him taking Ronnie Harrison, or you would take Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle. If you can't tell by how I take a defense, I'm either getting pressure off the line or I want my secondary to be strong. And right now, as we discussed, the Raiders do not have a good secondary at all. They need youth. They need something new.
More than anything on the Raiders, Ty, honestly, I feel like that the Raiders secondary is probably the biggest mess in the NFL right now, and out of all secondaries, and they really, really need some youth in that secondary to play well. It's kind of a sad thing because they really need some help back there to do something. And to help Khalil Mack and Bruce Irving, the linebackers, and help their front seven, because right now all they're doing is hurting themselves. They don't draft a safety or corner.
With the 11th overall pick in the first round, I have the Miami Dolphins taking Vita Vita, the defensive tackle. Amazing thing is, out of all the defensive tackles, he's probably the top prospect, and he's going to be the most surefire success story in the NFL for all the defensive tackles. So, and with Ndamukong Suh leading, he's your plug-in, he's your replacement.
You're right. I mean, Vita Vita is, in my opinion, the best defensive tackle prospect, without a doubt in my mind, because that guy is so strong. He's so explosive. He's so quick for a defensive tackle. Why not get such a talented player in Vita Vita? Why? I mean, honestly, why would you pass up when you need that position? It's a position of need, and he's the best defensive tackle in here.
And with the 12th overall pick, I have the Bills. Then again, this is with no trades happening, and with the current pick they do have, I have them taking either Baker Mayfield or I have them taking Josh Rosen, the remaining quarterbacks that they do need.
Right. I mean, I feel if Josh Rosen, like you said, Josh Allen, your pick third, I feel like if for some reason, I just don't think he's going to drop all the way down to 12. But if he does, I feel like they're going to pick Josh Rosen. If not, I feel like they're going to pick Baker Mayfield. Me personally, I like to see him pick freaking Lamar Jackson. But I mean, I'm not, in a realistic, in the real world, man, they're probably not going to pick that.
Okay, next we go with the Washington Redskins with the 13th overall pick, and I have them taking Daron Payne, the defensive tackle, because, like we mentioned earlier, the Redskins as a whole team, they don't have that many holes, but you could argue defensive tackle is their weakest spot.
Agreed. I mean, they really just need a couple more things in that team to help themselves, fix it and be a good team, a playoff contender. I agree. You're right.
This is where things get a little interesting. With the 14th overall pick, I have the Packers taking Isaiah Oliver, the cornerback. You could say that don't take an offensive lineman to help Aaron Rodgers and maybe the future and Sean Kaiser. But with trading out Demarius Randall, your top corner, you have a hole there, and plug in the third top cornerback that's protected in this draft to the Packers.
I mean, very true. I mean, why would you not get a corner? Like, you trade your best corner away. Why do you even take the risk of not getting that? Because do you really want to see what will happen to your secondary if you don't have any good corners? I mean, a rookie obviously is not going to be the best in their first year. Most of them are. Some
but they have a future. They have a chance.
That's what I'm saying is, like, you have years later that they can shine. Get used to the game, the level of the NFL, and go farther and get better, go to Pro Bowls, be stuff like that.
Okay, with the 15th overall pick for the Cardinals, and my personal favorite pick, I have them taking Lamar Jackson, the quarterback from Louisville. The reason why is the offense is going to be needing to be rebuilt. Once Sam Bradford, once he leaves, which Lamar Jackson would be the replacement, you're going to have a quarterback that is completely different. He's your mobile. His comparison is Michael Vick. He's very different. But then you have Larry Fitzgerald, who is leaving soon. You can rebuild the receiving core around him to make Lamar Jackson work in Arizona and make it his team. So I think it would be a perfect fit for Lamar.
I mean, yeah, I kind of see that. I kind of don't. I mean, and the way I see it is you're right. You're right that Lamar would be a good fit in Arizona just for the fact that Arizona needs a good quarterback. But I'm like kind of vice versa with you. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield, would go a little earlier. I think Lamar would go before Baker, and then I think Lamar. Okay, you know what I'm saying. Your pick earlier when you said Baker Mayfield was going to go to the Bills. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the Cardinals would take Baker Mayfield while the Bills would get Lamar Jackson. That's how I feel. The reason I say that is because I feel like Lamar probably fits better in Buffalo because Tyrod Taylor was mobile. He's mobile. Baker Mayfield, his maturity level is really not that high. I feel like he needs to grow up a little bit before he can be a star in the NFL.
Regardless of wherever I put him, I put either where.
I feel like he'll be a first rounder no matter
wherever Lamar Jackson goes, this is the way that it's going to need is the team needs to rebuild around Lamar because if we're going to look back to the Mike Vick comparison, the Falcons were built around Michael Vick, and that's why he did so well with the talents he could do like naturally. He's going to be a mobile quarterback. He's going to be running around the field. He's going to be throwing it short, but that doesn't match up with Arizona. But the good thing is Arizona is going to be going through a rebuilding phase soon, and why not use a rebuild around your star quarterback who has so much potential?
You know, you're right. You really are right. Lamar is in my opinion, he's a very good quarterback. I feel like there's a lot he needs to work on, but I mean that's every quarterback in the NFL. You know, the most, in my opinion, the most solid quarterback is Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen, but they all have something they need to work on.
You could all put flag them.
Yeah, there's something for every quarterback, no matter what. You know, it really is. I mean, they're rookies. I mean, it's a different ball game in the NFL than it is college ball. You know.
Correct. And with a 16th overall pick in the first round, I have the Baltimore Ravens taking Calvin Ridley, the receiver. The reason why is because, as mentioned before, there is no star wide receiver in the Baltimore. There is no star, so Calvin Ridley could just go in, help Flacco out, and hopefully become the franchise receiver.
I agree with you. You know, but they need to have a franchise receiver, like not a star receiver, a number one receiver. Because
you can't just have slot receivers.
No. Okay, so I got the 17 through 32 picks.
Yes.
So me and him kind of on this, we're going to kind of conflict because I mean I know he already picked someone earlier in the draft that I have on my 17th. In 17th, the Chargers I picked Ron Payne, defensive tackle out of Alabama. I say that because there's just if you watch the Chargers, they're not a bad team, but they need some help on the D line. I mean, and on the O line, both. But I mean, personally, instead of O line first, I feel like D line's what they're gonna do.
And I just feel like if Deron Payne is there, because everyone knows Vita is going to get taken up, he's not going to fall that far.
No,
but after then, you have the Redskins. That's depending if the Dolphins take the tackle. Because if Dolphins don't take Vita, the Redskins will take him, and then you just kind of go down that line of what teams need a defensive tackle and who's left on the board. I could see him going to the Chargers, but that's only if he falls that far.
That is true. The Seahawks, as I was saying, offensive line. I picked Isaiah Wynn, offensive guard out of Georgia. I say that because, he's other than Quentin Nelson, he's the second best offensive guard in the draft. And the Seahawks ranking 32nd in offensive line play. It's kind of hard not to get an offensive lineman. I mean, it's not the most flashy pick in the world, but that is exact. It's a smart pick in the long run. It'll help your franchise quarterback, Russell Wilson.
It's a smart pick if you want to build your offense up, and if you already have a lacking running back and you want to build around your quarterback who is prone to get sacked a lot because of the horrible line. So draft a lineman, go from there.
That's true. And then I got 19, the Cowboys. I got Rashaan Evans, inside linebacker, Alabama. I feel like, with them losing Anthony Hitchens and then probably not going to Justin Durant, they might not sign him back. Or even if they do, he's not a starter anymore. He's old. He's not ready for it. They need a linebacker. They need to fix up that defensive, help the front seven with him, and it'll put some pressure off of some of the corners and help them out in the long run.
If you look at the Dallas's linebacker core, this is how it basically comes down. You have Sean Lee, who one is getting up in age a little bit. He's been injured, so we don't know how well Sean Lee is going to continuously go. When he's healthy and when he's on the field, he's a perfectly fine linebacker and he can do the job. Then you have Jalen Smith. We never know if Jalen Smith, what his true potential is going to be. We've seen some of him, but we don't know how well he's going to go. And then we have Joe Thomas, the linebacker from Green Bay.
He's not going to be. He's more for depth than anything.
He's going to be a special teams player. We truly do not have any linebackers that are noteworthy in Dallas all the time.
Agreed. And then I got the Lions, number 20, Darius Geis. And the reason he's a running back out of LSU. The reason I picked him is because I'm kind of like in the Saints, like what the Saints did. They got the 1-2 punch, Alvin, it's Mark Ingram and
Alvin Kamara.
Alvin Kamara, it's kind of the 1-2 punch, boom, boom. It's a good thing right there. And LeGarrette Blount, And Darius Guice, that would be a mean running back core out there. You know anything? Okay.
Oh, I just think that Darius Guice is going to be he's like a younger version of LeGarrette Blunt.
He really is.
Whenever you think of LeGarrette Blunt, he's just the power back. The thing is he's getting up in age. He's not that productive anymore, as age will do to you. Look at Adrian Peterson. Same things happened to him. Darius Guice is going to be the eventual replacement of LeGarrette Blunt and the star running back of the Detroit Lions.
You know, that's very true. It is. And then Bengals, you know, they really got to build up that offensive line. And like I was saying earlier, the center is a big part. It's kind of it is the anchor of that whole offensive line. I picked them picking Frank Ragnow, center out of Arkansas. He's very, very talented. He's very strong. He doesn't bull rush and stuff doesn't really get him. Speedy guys, I can't really get him. He's very powerful. He will stand his ground and he will not let someone through because that's just how he is.
He's going to be a safe bet for the Bengals, and like we discussed over, disagree or not, the Bengals roster is not an all-time high. There are lots of holes and not a lot of good things are happening, and they need an offensive line, and the center is going to be that's the foundation of the offense, is your center.
Agreed. Okay, this guy, I don't really know how to say his name. His 22nd Buffalo. It's Lichten Vander Isch. He's a linebacker at Boise State. This guy is fast. He's fast. He's sideline to sideline. He can do it all. He's got some downsides. Over pursuing is a big thing for him, is a problem with him. But other than that, there's not a lot of holes in his game. He's fast. Plays sideline to sideline. Pursuit is great. Sometimes lots of times he over pursues, but he is
that can be trained. You can fix that.
He's a player that'll give you 100%, and he will work his butt off to do anything he can. And then you got Patriots. You know, losing Nate Solinger, whatever. Colton Miller, offensive tackle, UCLA. Very talented. Very talented. He is great. It does not stand very well against the bull rush, but he's very good against in passing. Like in pass game, he can get his butt down. He can put his hands where they need to be. He's got good arm length. He's got solid vertical. He's got like a solid frame. Not vertical. Solid frame.
When you look at the Patriots, they're one of the most pass-heavy teams in the whole entire NFL compared to like when you look at the ratio of passing to running. So he would fit perfectly there since the majority of quarterbacks are right-handed. Left tackle would be their blind side. So they'd be fine.
Exactly. I mean, especially a guy like that, best offensive tackle in the draft. Okay, then you got the Panthers. They need a receiver. They need some receivers to help Cam Newton. So I picked DJ Moore out of Maryland. He's a pretty good receiver. He's kind of short, but he's fast. He's quick. He's quick up. As soon as the ball hides him, he's gone. And not a lot of people can keep up with him.
He's going to be a good help for Cam because Cam, I'm not saying Cam can't throw the ball down deep, but that's not what he's most comfortable with doing and all of that. He'd rather take a receiver and go down intermediate or something because that's just what he does that better. That's what works for him personally, and DJ Moore would help that. He's going to be that kind of route runner receiver who's going to catch the ball and go run after catch all the time.
You're right about that completely. All right, and then the Titans, Harold Landry, defensive end at Boston College. They have, like, last year was not a high for them in sacks. It was kind of a low, in my opinion. I feel like getting Harold Landry, probably one of the best ends in the draft, other than Bradley Chubb. He's probably the second.
Yeah.
He could do amazing things for this team and really make this team's defensive line a lot better than what it was this year.
For the Titans, your best player, and no discredit to this man whatsoever, Jarrell Casey. Amazing player, but his prime has left him.
Oh, easily. I mean, it's not that it's bad. It's just you can't play that same way forever and ever. You start to, degrade after a while,
If you haven't noticed, common theme, father time wins, players lose.
Pretty much. And then Falcons, Taven Bryan, defensive tackle out of Florida. I'm probably pronouncing these names way wrong, but they have an underrated defensive tackle, and if you put him to the side, that'll anchor that defensive line. It will make that defensive line mean, scary, and it's just a team you won't want to mess with on defense. Okay, You got any comments?
Just basically that defensive line is going to be in my opinion, the main focus. And like every year, you think quarterback, 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 but see the reoccurring trend about defensive tackle going here, defensive tackle here. It's because not many teams focus on a good defensive tackle, and when in reality they mean so much to a defense because they're taking up blocks, they're stuffing the run, and they're just overall causing a mess on defense. So yeah, smart pick, and it should work out for them.
It should. I think I agree. Okay, so then you got 27. You got the Saints. It's Dallas Goedert. He's a tight end out of South Dakota State. No, they really needed that help on their offense. He's a good receiving threat, but one of the biggest downsides to this man is he tries to one-handed catch it too much. He's very overambitious. I'm sorry. Let me turn that off. Oh man, but sure. He's very overambitious about it. He thinks that he wants this bet catch is a big thing to do. I mean, it's not always the best thing to do. I mean, but overall, he's a good tight end.
Once he gets some discipline with him, because he has the mindset of a receiver, but for a tight end.
Exactly.
And to some degree, that's good, and some degree that's bad because he, like we said, he's overambitious. He wants to go with the one-hand catch all the time instead of the surefire, I'm going to catch it with two hands and make sure I actually catch the ball.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, that's how you feel, And then the Steelers, oh, man, Jesse Bates. He's a safety, wait for us. It's been a couple of years, of course, but it's kind of like whenever Troy Polamalu retired, man, they haven't had the same kind of threat on defense at the safety position because he was he's seriously a Hall of Famer. If you don't think the man's a Hall of Famer, something's wrong.
Troy Polamalu was one of the best defensive players besides maybe who was the 92? James Harrison. Besides James Harrison, he was basically one of your best defensive players.
Easily. I mean, you're looking at a guy that good, man. It's hard to find a player like that, It's hard. It really is. But so then my next pick is 29. So the Jaguars that is the team that originally has that pick. But I say that the Browns are going to trade with the Jaguars, and they're going to pick offensive tackle Connor Williams out of Texas. The Browns have an offensive line that's really good, but they need one more young, youthful player to cap that off, finish it off, and be done. And then they can have a solid O-line for the next 10, 11 years.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is with Joe Thomas leaving, basically every year everyone could count on Joe Thomas to be, Joe Thomas, the left tackle that's going to save the day and who's going to block everyone from sacking the quarterback. How many numbers quarterbacks that the Browns had during his tenure, but he's gone. So you have no real left tackle that's protecting him.
Very true. Okay. Then you got the Vikings. You got Will Hernandez, offensive guard, UTEP. Vikings to really get that offense. They got the tackles.
Yeah.
They're fine. But they need guard. They need to build around their center and fix that up. It's like that's the way to do it. Is you got to fix it up right there, right now, and they can be a Super Bowl team without a doubt in my mind.
It's just a smart thing to go. You can never go wrong fixing your offensive line.
No, that's the front line of everything. Okay, then you got 31, the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
So I said earlier they're going to draft. I think I said earlier they're going to draft a line. Let me see what I said. Yes, I said they were going to draft an offensive tackle. So I feel like I'm going to go again. I think they need a tackle.
Tackle?
Another tackle. Just to have one on each side. Because, youth is a big thing. I know that sounds really weird. 2 offensive tackles and 1 in the first round. Yes, that sounds odd. It sounds really odd. But if you can keep Tom Brady protected, maybe play until 40-something years old, it's a very good possibility. But if you take the time and you waste your picks on something so flashy that doesn't work out, boom, what did you do with yourself?
Yeah, I can see the reason you choose that pick, but then it's like the gamble of,
that's true.
Do we try to keep Tom Brady on life support and keep going?
Exactly.
It's like, do you try to keep Tom Brady on life support because is Tom Brady going to play till he's 45? No, that's not going to happen. But if you ask Robert Kraft, he's going to say, yep, he's going to play that old. As Tom Brady, he's going to say he's going to play that old, but he's not. There's no way he can play that old before he gets murdered.
Agreed. And then 30-second, the last pick, the cornerback Mike Hughes, UCF. I feel like the Eagles themselves need a cornerback to solidify their team because they don't have a lot of holes. But every team in the NFL, no matter what the team is, there's going to be holes in your team, and that's a need for the Eagles is a cornerback. So Mike Hughes is a very good cornerback, and I feel like that's going to be the finish. All right, so
and that's our mock
that's
draft.
all.
Be sure to comment and
subscribe. Let's just let us
all that
know.
wonderful stuff.
Yeah, let us know how you feel.
Also, be sure, like, if you don't agree on all of that,
Just let us know how you feel. And then that's all from. I'm Steven. That's Todd. This is Sports University. Thank you guys.
peace out.